There's a particular kind of tiredness that has nothing to do with sleep. You wake up after 8 hours and still feel like you are carrying something. You get through your day, check things off a list, maybe even laugh with someone you love, and yet underneath all of it, there's this low, persistent hum of pressure, like the world is running just slightly too fast, and you are always one step behind catching up. Most people around you do not seem to notice it, or maybe they do, and they have simply gotten better at pretending they do not. But you notice. You have always noticed. And that noticing, that constant awareness of how much is sitting on your shoulders, is quietly exhausting in a way that is almost impossible to put into words. What people rarely talk about is why this happens. Not the surface-level reasons, not the job, the schedule, the news, the family obligations. Those are real, but they're not the whole story. Society has a tendency to look at a stressed, overwhelmed person and offer two things: productivity advice or the suggestion to relax more, neither of which actually touches what is happening beneath the surface, because what is really going on has more to do with your nervous system than your to-do list. Stress, as most people experience it, is not just a response to difficult circumstances. It is a physiological state. When researchers at Stanford studied prolonged stress responses in humans, what they found was striking. The brain, under chronic stress, begins to reorganize itself. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for calm reasoning and long-term thinking, gradually becomes less active, and the amygdala, which processes threat and emotional reactivity, becomes more dominant. In plain terms, stress literally changes how you think, not because you're weak or undisciplined, but because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do: protect you from what it perceives as ongoing danger. The problem is that modern life sends the nervous system threat signals constantly. A stressful email reads the same to your amygdala as a predator in the grass. A difficult conversation at work produces the same cortisol spike as a genuine emergency. Your body cannot always tell the difference between a life-threatening situation and a Tuesday afternoon. And so it stays alert, stays braced, stays in that low-grade survival mode that looks, from the outside, like someone who just can't seem to relax. This pattern often begins long before adulthood. For many people, a nervous system wired toward hypervigilance developed in childhood, in environments that were unpredictable, demanding, emotionally charged, or simply high pressure. Children adapt. They learn to scan their surroundings for cues. They learn to stay one step ahead, to anticipate problems before they arrive, to manage their own emotions in silence because expressing them felt unsafe or inconvenient. These were not flaws in development. They were intelligent, creative adaptations to the conditions of their world. And adaptations do not disappear just because the conditions change. It's worth saying clearly that none of this means something is wrong with you. A nervous system that responds to stress this way is not defective. It is experienced. It learned very early that alertness was useful. That is not a character flaw. That is a nervous system doing its job, perhaps a bit too thoroughly. Here's the part that often surprises people. The very thing that makes chronic stress so difficult is also what makes stress-sensitive people unusually perceptive. The same neurological wiring that keeps you alert to danger also makes you highly attuned to nuance, to the subtleties in a conversation, to beauty, to meaning, to what is happening underneath the surface of things. There's a real cost to carrying this much awareness, but there's also a quiet depth to it that purely unbothered people often do not access. You are not broken. What you are experiencing makes complete sense given the system you are operating with. And the path forward is not about fixing yourself. It's about understanding what your nervous system actually needs in order to feel safe, not just intellectually, but physically at the level of the body. The most research-supported entry point into that shift is something almost insultingly simple. It's the exhale. Specifically, a longer exhale than inhale. When you extend your exhale, Breathing in for 4 counts and out for 6 or 8, you directly stimulate the vagus nerve, which is the pathway your body uses to shift out of stress mode and into rest. Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman and his colleagues at Stanford have documented this extensively. It sounds too small to matter. It is not. Even 60 seconds of this kind of breathing measurably reduces cortisol and activates the parasympathetic nervous system, not as a relaxation trick, as a direct biological input that tells your nervous system the threat has passed. You can stop bracing now. It won't solve everything, but it interrupts the loop, and interrupting the loop, even briefly, is where change actually begins. Not through willpower, through physiology. If this landed somewhere real for you, the next layer of this goes even deeper, because how you relate to stress in your body is connected to something even older about how you learn to move through the world. That piece is worth sitting with.